Let's discuss this further with SABC International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, thank you so much. Perhaps to start the conversation here, yesterday you had revealed to us here on The Full View that Sidney Mufamadi had the ability to engage the former president or the outgoing president of Mozambique on potential interventions. Is there anything else that we know today about the ongoing engagements through the diplomatic and bilateral channels that exist?
Nothing new except the fact that from the reaction we're getting in Mozambique, it looks like that visit was something that many people agreed to on the ground, hoping that a solution will be found. But the only challenge is that the outgoing president, Felipe Nyusi, has indicated to that delegation that everything is under control and they will be able to manage the situation. Now the question is what's going to happen from tomorrow when protests and the strike resume.
Yeah, the statement that was issued by Mondlane, the opposition leader, to his supporters was that they should not loot and should not destroy property, but should continue protesting and intensify their protests. That is what we're expecting to happen Monday. Is there anything new from the opposition leaders, which clearly hold a lot of sway in getting and mobilizing Mozambican voters to the streets?
You are correct. That was his statement, calling all the supporters and those who are part of these protests not to loot or to destroy property. But you know that when you have many people protesting, you are bound to have these kinds of incidents. And therefore, you cannot rule out the possibility of violent protests here and there, because to manage many people who are engaged in a program of action, sometimes it's very difficult. And remember, he is in Europe, he's not in Mozambique. He can make that call, but on the ground, those who are leading the protest must ensure that that call is respected, and sometimes it might be very difficult for them to do that.
Yeah. The statement that was released by NATJOINTS, and I do want to caveat here that NATJOINTS, some of its institutional members includes SAPS, the military state security agency, as well as the Border Management Authority. The statement they released is that there will be an intensified effort. What do we know about the practicalities of what they mean by that?
Clearly, this speaks to the deployment of those departments at the border to ensure that there are no challenges. You know that they've been working with police, they've been working with the intelligence services, you have the defense, the military, you also have foreign affairs, which is part of the security cluster. The NATJOINTS is part of bringing together all the security cluster, and you have those departments. Therefore, I expect those departments to be working and looking at this situation. And I think South Africa took a decision to release the statement to allay fears, as you know, that ahead of a protest in Mozambique, there are fears that the border will be affected. But secondly, I think trying to communicate, because when Dr. Mufamadi went to Mozambique, there was no statement trying to clarify why he was there and what South Africa is doing. I think that was the intention, particularly as you know that social media can be good and also be very bad. People circulating videos, some old and others not really related to what is happening.
Yeah, we know that every time that the borders get shut down, that it brings about some economic disruptions. Mozambique is an important partner in the Southern African Customs Union, and a lot of South African businesses have business and asset interest in Mozambique. Has there been any sort of statements or any engagements happening in the business community of South Africa that you may have heard of?
I haven't heard anything, but you know that we have so many South African companies, particularly in the SADC region, in different countries. I mean, this morning I saw the Minister of Trade and Industry, a video sent to me, where he was talking about the impact of the strike in terms of the checkers chain in Mozambique, and he was standing outside one of the shops. And you can see that there is going to be impact. You know that including the banks, the South African banks, many of them are operating in these neighboring countries.
Yeah.
One thing that you see when you cross the border, particularly up to East Africa, the South African companies, including in West Africa, are really active in those regions. And therefore, what happens in some of these countries will have impact to South African companies that are operating there. I don't even want to talk about goods and services, as we have pointed out how important the Maputo corridor is, and that gas pipeline.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been a lot of silent diplomacy in trying to resolve what's going on in Mozambique. You and I spoke yesterday about the statements from the African Union, as well as the Troika leadership in SADC being led by Tanzania. Have you heard anything in the last 24 hours about any interventions or any advanced engagements, either from the SADC chair coming out of Zimbabwe or the Troika leadership coming out of Tanzania on the ongoing crises?
Not yet. Perhaps tomorrow, ahead of New Year, when these organizations are issuing statements ahead of a New Year, I think the message by the Secretary General tomorrow after 11, when it's released, the recorded message, Mozambique will be part of issues that he is going to touch on. And I expect other organizations doing the same, as you know that these organizations and institutions ahead of New Year, they issue statements. I think the issue of Mozambique will feature in a statement from SADC, from the AU, from COMESA, and other interested parties.
Yeah. Sophie Mokoena, thank you so much for that. That was international editor here at the SABC, Sophie Mokoena.